Okay, so the next thing on they've missed out step 13 on these instructions. I don't know why. I remember thinking they was really weird. What you actually end up with is there you go, Vogue, bit of a typo, Vogue. 2 step 12s and a step 14, but that's okay because we're adults and we can cope. Well, we can cope because we have wine in a sippy cup. Very nice. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is finish the upper edge of the bow self-facing. So if you actually have a look, there we go. If you actually have a look at the pattern piece, and it doesn't matter whether you look at the stiffening netting part of the pattern piece or the actual bow itself, it doesn't matter. What you're looking at here is above the line here, above the roll line, that's called the facing, the self-facing. So if you've ever sewn a dress where you've had maybe like a neckline on a dress, what you have is you have facing that you have to sew on, and all that happens is that you tuck the facing into the neckline at the end. So if this was the neckline of a dress, you tuck the facing in, and it makes it look all neat and tidy at the end, so that you don't have raw edges or any of your overlocking if you're using an overlock or any of that. And so what they've done with this bow is they've actually included self-facing, which means you cut the whole thing out as one whole piece, and then at the end you're going to tuck it in, so there's no extra seam. You don't have to do an extra seam on it. And so what we're going to do is this top part here, the ziggy-zaggy top part, is we're going to just use a zigzag stitch along this, or your overlocker if you've got one, which I'm going to use mine. And all we're going to do is we're going to overlock or zigzag stitch this top here so that it doesn't fray when it's all tucked inside the bow, to make the bow look nice and neat and tidy. And so if I have a look at my pattern piece, we stitched that dart. Do you remember we stitched that dart? And so the top part of my bow is now, hang on, there we go, from here we go. So if you have a look at my pattern piece, it's kind of pointy now. It's got a pointy edge in the middle of that pattern piece, and so what I've got is this nice dart that I stitched, and these bits here and this bit here are now the top edge of my bow. They're the edges of the self-facing. So if you see, I drew that line along, and the top is the facing part of the line. And so I'm just going to go along and I'm going to overlock these edges here. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. And I'll be back in a sec. Ooh.